We're joined now by Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. Senator, thank you so much for sharing part of your afternoon with us. After McConnell has declared that this bill is basically dead because we won't see it in the House, is there anything that could resuscitate it? Is it completely dead?
Boris, I hope not, but I have a sinking feeling that once again, Donald Trump has succeeded in killing any hope of real progress on securing our border, on protecting our families from fentanyl, on making our country safer. Look, it was Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, who asked one of the most conservative members here, James Lankford of Oklahoma, to take on the difficult task of negotiating this complex border security deal. And over months, he did. He drove a very hard bargain. And senators who just a few days ago were saying that they were demanding a tough border security deal are now in the hallway saying, oh, never mind, because Donald Trump is telling them so. I think this is the height of hypocrisy. Boris, what the House is doing right now is moving ahead on trying to impeach Secretary Mayorkas and make Marjorie Taylor Greene one of the impeachment managers, rather than coming to the table to get this bill passed. So I wish there were some way forward, but if McConnell says his caucus won't support it, then I'm gravely worried that we are simply at a point where Republicans are not serious. They are not willing to take the vote to move ahead on this package, and it'll have huge and terrible consequences for our country and our border. One last point. Sure. Many of my colleagues are saying, oh, Joe Biden could fix it anytime he wants. No, he can't. This bill contains emergency authorities that Donald Trump asked for when he was president, that Joe Biden, our president, asked for in his first State of the Union. We need to change the law and provide the resources. This bill would include $14 billion for deportations, for increased asylum hearings, for hiring more Border Patrol officers. I'll remind you, the head of the Border Patrol union, one of the most conservative people I've ever met.
Right.
I met Brandon at the border. He's endorsed this deal, saying it would make our border safer and more secure, and yet Republicans are walking away.
Now, Senator, I do want to zero in on that objection that you mentioned on the substance of the bill from Trump and other Republicans. They argue that the laws that we have on the books, if President Biden followed them, would ease the current state of crisis at the border. They specifically mentioned that 2017 saw a lower number of migrant crossings, one of the lowest in history, and the laws haven't really changed that much. They say that what changed was the enforcement, and specifically who is in the White House. Obviously, 2017, that was Donald Trump. What's your response to that?
My response is one of the measures that Donald Trump took was cruel and was decried by everyone here, Republican and Democrat, intentionally separating parents and children to deter families from trying to come to the border. One of the other steps that he took was ruled invalid, illegal by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers California, Arizona, a big chunk of our border. That's one of the areas where President Biden and this bipartisan group that has negotiated for months is trying to give the president emergency authority that would be to the benefit of either President Biden or a future president. The fact they're walking away from that shows how deeply unserious they are.
You obviously support this bill, but there are some Democratic priorities on immigration that were not included, including protections for undocumented migrants who are here illegally. Many of them obviously make up a huge part of the American labor force, including in agriculture. Why was that not a deal breaker for you?
Well, there were lots of provisions that were in the 2018 bill that I worked hard on that included, for example, a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers. I'll remind you what happened in 2018. Donald Trump met in the White House when he was president with Senator Graham, Senator Durbin, said, if you fund the border wall, I will embrace giving Dreamers a pathway to citizenship. A bipartisan group of us worked on it for months. We thought we had the votes. When it got to the floor, Donald Trump, President Trump then, got on the phone and started haranguing Republican senators until they walked away from it. He killed the last bipartisan immigration reform bill that would have given Dreamers a pathway to citizenship. That was not in this bill, and I think that was truly regrettable. But we are at a point with our asylum system, which is what is today bringing hundreds of thousands of people to our border, where we need to reform it. We need to improve it. We need to secure our border. That was one of the core provisions in this bill.
Sure.
That I support, that was very difficult for us to reach, but that I support, and the funding to assist the president in securing the border.
Senator, one last question quickly. Do you feel bad for Senator James Lankford? He sort of puts himself out there. He negotiates this bill. You said he drove a hard bargain. He gets it across the finish line without, as you noted, some of the key components that Democrats have wanted for years. And yet the former president calls this bill a betrayal. What do you make of that? He's sort of being left to hang out to dry.
I do feel very badly for James. Senator Lankford is an actual friend of mine. He's one of the most conservative people I've ever been actually friends with. We've traveled together. I've gone to Oklahoma. He's come to Delaware. Our wives know each other and work well together on an annual event for the spouses of the Senate. Look, James is a determined, earnest, honest man who's very conservative. And he was asked to take this up, and he spent months working on it. He drove a very hard bargain. Trump endorsed him in his last election, and Trump just last night was lying on TV and saying, oh, no, I didn't endorse him. He's being left out there on the field by his own team when he took on hard work that they asked him to do, and he delivered. I think the abandonment of James Lankford by his own caucus is, again, one of the more shameful moments I've ever seen in the Senate. I've been here 13 years, and this is a depressing day for those of us who want to believe that we can work together. What we're getting out of the House is chaos, political theater, Marjorie Taylor Greene governance. What we deserve here is to show that the Senate can work together, that when folks like Senator Lankford and Senator Murphy, Senator Sinema roll up their sleeves and come to a bipartisan deal, that we'll take it up and pass it.
Senator Chris Coons, we have to leave the conversation there. Appreciate your perspective.
Thank you, Boris.
Of course. Next.